Welcome to Neuronoodle's Open Mic, raw and real mental health chats. I'm your host, Pete Jansons, joined by Joshua Moore, Anthony Ramos, and John Mekrut. Think of this as your local mental wellness and technology pub where folks drop by to chat, share their thoughts, and dive into candid discussion. We're here to talk about everything from neurofeedback to the latest in mental health tech, and we do it all unfiltered and unscripted. Grab a drink, find a comfy spot, and join the conversation. Let's get real. John. You're connecting to audio.
That is a sweet hat, dude.
All right, if you can name where it's from, you win 25 cents.
Name where it's from.
Early 70s movie.
Oh, Billy Jack. Is that just because it's because I'm old? If you ask the other two guys, they're not going to know what the fuck they're not going to know what you're talking about. Billy Jack. That's old. You're not old enough.
Oh yes, I are.
Oh my god, dude, that is awesome.
Let's see if we can get everybody else in early.
Yeah, I figured I'd hop on and people would come on because I didn't get a note back as to whether they were available or not. But I figured you're in Chicago, you want to go home.
I am home.
You are home. All right, fair enough.
This could be the early goings of, I don't know what we're going to call this, the boys or the neurofeedback happy hour.
I like the boys. You can't use the Z, unfortunately.
Oh,
because HBO be sending you cease and desist letters.
That's all right. They can sue the LLC. They can take my $48 a month from Neuronoodle.
all press is good press. Pete Jansons is being sued by Warner Brothers. Yes.
That's worth $48. Take it.
Absolutely. Play it out until you just say, okay, fine. So do it with a Z, man. The Neurofeedback boys. I don't think they can actually trademark the word boys. B-O-Y-Z.
No. It's very specific. Plus, you put neurofeedback in there. That's an identifier.
The Neurofeedback boys with a Z. I like it.
So Anthony will pop in.
Yeah, they'll pop in whenever they want.
And then our guy in Washington, Joshua Moore,
who I don't know. I don't think
Oh,
we've
okay.
ever had the
He's
pleasure.
been around a while.
Yeah, I love what he's doing with the neurofeedback for all. I think that's very cool.
Well, I think what's cool about this is it's just like we're at a bar, people show up and we talk about things. And
let me break into my hooch then.
Go ahead. Here we go. No, Happy Friday.
I'm joking. I come from show business where we weren't allowed to have alcohol in our office. It's an old law back from the old days when the studio, talent agents and studio exec used to get the starlets drunk.
The contracts are hard to enforce. I didn't know you were in the entertainment business, John.
25 years, dude.
Oh, talk to me. We got all the time in the world.
That's it. I was a talent agent and then I became a personal manager. So it was a long, grueling experience.
Which was worse?
I had a blast. I gotta say. It loses its sheen after a while. You get to, have kids and you're married and, you got a client who goes, hey, listen, he's an acting client. And so I want you to come see my band.
Right.
Okay. He pays a lot of commissions. You're like, okay, I'll come see your band. Where and when? Oh, we're at the Whiskey. I go, oh, great. The Whiskey a Go-Go. I love going there. What time? 1:30 a.m. Are you serious? I was like, no, dude, I can't come see you. 1:30 in the morning.
Whiskey a Go. That's impressive, John.
These, because it was, it's celebrity bands. It's nonsense. Every actor out there thinks he's a musician. Every musician thinks he's an actor. So, but to go 1:30, midnight, whatever. It's like I'm not going to the Whiskey. I'm 38 years old. I got two small children. That's not the way this works.
38. Oh man.
At the time.
I know. I'm just saying that's
for a 22-year-old who's got no responsibilities. You go to the Whiskey at midnight and watch the band.
Well, that's when the vampires.
Exactly. That's Tom Petty. The vampire. Yeah, see, we understand the same references.
Yeah. Okay. Well, while we're waiting for everybody, if you can do neurofeedback and be an artist or musician, if you could go back in time, some of your talent, could any of them take advantage of neurofeedback?
Okay,
If so, how?
all of them. All of them. No, see, the problem, I say that flippantly. The truth is, I probably wouldn't want to mess with it. The wellspring of creativity, I think, resides in a weird brain dysfunctions. You know what I mean? These aren't normal people, which is why their lives are shambles. You know what I mean? They
Well,
create and
who
they
are normal people then?
well, there's that. But I mean, they have such a lack of semblance of rigor around their conduct, and they ascribe it to that's the wellspring of my creativity. And in a sense, it probably is. God forbid you marry one. It's just like I pity the spouses, male or female, it doesn't matter, gay, straight. The people who have to rub up against creative personalities are in for a world of hurt because they work in a whole different framework of reality than the rest of us.
Well,
And I think it's part of why they're good at what they do.
well, don't they run into I'm speculating here because
Yeah,
you have to be really good to be in that scene, and
yeah,
I'm not in that scene,
yeah,
but you go night to night to night, so you need to be on point. So you need to, whether it's caffeine and then caffeine doesn't work anymore.
yep,
Uh, you get up for the show, and then the show's over. You're all amped up. You can't sleep, so you got to take something to go to sleep, and
yep,
then you get hooked. You get hooked in this doom loop.
yep.
What? How could neurofeedback help with that? Because I don't think it can help anything with lack of sleep.
Well, I mean, Broadway people, theater people just end up having a different clock. They go to bed at 2 in the morning, they get up at noon. And that's just the way they conduct their lives. That can work actually. It's not necessarily the healthiest of lifestyles, but you can get your sleep. I more pity the film actors who not is, television sitcoms, it's like a 9 to 5 job. You go in the morning, you show up at work for 9 o'clock, you're out by 5, you're home for dinner. I mean, that's a very straightforward life. I can understand that appeal. It really is 5 days a week. Do rehearsal on Thursday, you tape on Friday. It's every week, it's like a cycle. So it's like go to a factory, which is what it is. But film actors are in this weird position of because there are so many moving parts, they have to be able to control their creative energy at 2 o'clock in the morning. They've been on the set since noon. So they've been there 14 hours already. They got a nice trailer. They got play, it's nice. It's not horrible. They're not treated badly. But they knock on the door. They go, okay, your scene's up, and they got to be ready to go. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. They've been managing their energy for 14 hours, perhaps, and they have to be ready to cry, laugh, scream, be afraid, whatever the emotional content is on the dime right then. Because there are 50 other people who had to prepare for that moment. The set people, the lighting guys, the sound guys, all that mechanics of the creating the moment for them to film that scene is so arduous. And the poor actor has to instantaneously be ready.
All right, I'll throw a curveball at you, John. I just saw over the weekend on Netflix. I don't remember what it's called. We Are the World, but it just Bob Geldof and how they got all that talent together to figure out that song and Prince
Right,
and
right.
I forgot what it was. The AMA Awards. You would know better than me. That was like the big thing. And on the West Coast to get everybody in LA, I think it was LA or somewhere around there, to
Yeah,
get everybody in town and then to bring them together to do this benefit. And they didn't have everything baked out to harness all the egos and all, they're up 24 hours, more than 24 hours. You're talking about movie set actors. At least they got a script. You got a bunch of people with no script.
that's true. No,
Yeah,
you're right. That those are live shows, the Oscars, where that is a level of a pressure that I can't even envision. Because you're right. I mean, it's the pressure on everybody in the industry around how to produce these things is staggering, and live shows are the worst. You're 100% right.
well, what do you do when you have 50 alphas?
Break out the drugs, I guess. God
I want to
almighty.
say Lionel Richie. Look, I have the advantage. I just saw it, but I had no idea all this stuff went down.
Yeah.
We're talking mid '80s, whatever it was,
All
and
right.
Bob Geldof and Lionel Richie got together, and it's like almost you have filmmakers doing a film on filmmakers on this music video and putting it all together and how it all got together. Um, oh my goodness, I forgot who it was. I don't know if it was Stevie Wonder. Oh, here's Anthony. He's gonna be like, "What the hell are you guys talking about?"
We're the what? Oh
Well,
my.
this is part of how it goes. We get everybody
Yeah.
together on a
Well, I mean, I'm assuming I haven't seen the documentary, but I'm assuming like any of these events where you're trying to get these egos together in one room, you're obviously trading on their sympathy to the subject. We're doing something that's going to be
yeah,
helping, starving children in Africa, whatever it
right,
might be.
right.
So you leverage that their whatever social instinct they may have. Hopefully they've said yes for the right reasons, but it doesn't really matter. But it's not a moment, by the way, where you can ask for only the green jelly beans. This isn't that kind of an event. We're all doing this because we were invested in it, and yes, we understand it's an extension of you, and but so and so is doing it, and so is, oh, if they're doing it, okay, well, Paul McCartney's going to be there. Oh, all right. So you leverage the egos into the other ego space. There's always somebody who's more famous than them. So
Just like this podcast, John.
that's right. That's right. We know you're the most famous, Pete. And that's the
Oh, I
way,
don't know about the famous.
so the rest of us just, we just do this.
Oh, please. We don't Jake Unkelman doesn't have time. Dr. Marie doesn't have time. And there's so many other things that are going out there. We thought we'd put this thing together. And if Jay's got time or Marie's got time,
Mhm.
they can always pop in. And,
Right on. Right on.
Anthony, I like almost all your stuff that I can find on
Oh,
Facebook, whatever
nice.
makes the algorithm. John, I've always had a good time with you on the show.
We have had a good time. Anthony, I gotta say the same thing that Pete's saying. Your stuff is on point, man. You
Oh,
just every now
wow.
and again, this thing pops up in my feed. It's like one sentence long. It's
Yeah,
you're not wasting anybody's time. It's just like,
Wow.
that's really interesting. I have no idea why he put that up there, but let me think
Oh,
about that for a
man.
second. So, bless you. Thank you for your
No, thank
contributions.
you. That made my day. Yeah, and I don't know that we've talked.
We haven't. We don't
Yeah,
yet.
so that feels even better to know, that you might be making an impact somehow and you don't know. So I appreciate
Exactly. No, you are. Believe me, you are.
well,
That's
Anthony,
awesome. And I listened to John's episode. I think there was one in the last year on Neuronoodles, and I've gone through about halfway, and I enjoyed it too. So it's cool to get to meet you. And I know Josh
Well,
is very cool too. I don't know if you guys have met, but he's
I'm not.
also
I haven't met Josh. I don't know him.
oh
So
yeah.
this will be fun. Pete, I
Well,
know
I
you.
mean, look, I'm the guy behind the scenes with, Jay, whatever Jay wants to do. And then, I get introduced to these people. I'm like, holy crap, Anthony, very interesting cat. John, very interesting. Joshua, very interesting. And,
Mhm.
putting everybody together because I think there could be, I don't know what this is going to be called, neurofeedback happy hour. The
Yeah,
boys get,
Yeah, we were riffing Anthony on the boys,
I
BOYZ,
like it.
hoping that Warner Brothers would sue Pete. You know,
Yes.
I was,
All contact info to Pete. Yeah, go on.
That's right. I would get more money from the advertising from the lawsuit than I would get from the actual
exactly,
podcast.
exactly. So
Um,
But
go for it. To steal the do the logo. Steal their font.
that's
Steal their
right.
font when you put it up.
Well,
yeah, we
Anthony,
have
well,
immunity. Yeah.
Anthony, you have a chat room on Facebook that you got going quite a while ago. You took a
Mhm.
pause and then it came back again. You got quite a few people in there. Why don't you clue everybody that just tripped into this podcast, like John?
Yeah,
Give us
I don't know
give
what it
us a
is.
background.
Well, I don't know that there's a big mystery. I started, I guess more than 10 years ago now, posting everything I could learn about science and technology. And really I was trying to learn about the brain and I was trying to figure out, understand it for myself. And I'm also kind of a I'm an ENFP. I know Myers-Briggs is a little pseudosciency, but we're known as the journalist. And that was almost my major in college. It was between that and political science. So anyway, but I didn't do journalism, but I did do this. And so just accumulating over time, people start trying to drop in. I probably could do more to manipulate algorithms or whatever, but I don't. So I just try to make it a useful resource. So thanks for asking.
That's the key, man. If you put up good, build it and they will come.
Okay, I appreciate it.
It's like, well, everybody's out there trying to beat the algorithms. I get 100 emails a day going, yeah, I'm a social media expert. I can, please stop. Just put up good content. Yeah. My God, we're overthinking this.
I think you're right. And you guys, I don't know if you guys have seen that Google's putting AI into your search answers now.
Yeah.
And so there was a big controversy about that small web publishers may get less traffic now. But one of the things Google said, and this hasn't been proven without a doubt, they said the people that AI is citing tend to get even more traffic now. And I guess I'm bringing that up to say, to me, that puts even more an emphasis on how useful your content is. So if you're just saying the same thing as everybody else, or you're not saying it as authoritatively as someone else, you're not going to get the traffic. So it's, exactly. I think it's occurring to me right now as you say it, that being useful may actually be the criteria going forward.
I think it has to, and AI is going to have its own day of reckoning around that. It isn't just how many times has the word neuroplasticity been said. You know what I mean? That can't be the reality. It has to be, how is neuroplasticity useful to you as a human being? What does it mean to you? Why should you care about it?
It's the worst because we have TikTok now, and we have short form video.
Yeah.
And somebody close to me was listening to a video on telomeres the other day. And this last night. And they were saying, you want long telomeres. And actually, the more recent research that I had seen at least says that you don't want too long and you don't want too short. You want the appropriate amount, because in animal models, at least, it was causing disease to have too long of a telomere. So my point is, these people are making these videos. You don't know if they actually know what they're talking about, but they sound good, or some other, they're attractive or whatever. And maybe that'll get weeded out. Maybe AI will help. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I wish it would. Yeah.
Well, we all hope it will. It has to get a lot smarter, and it will. And this is a cultural conversation. What does authority mean? Who is an authority and why? Is it because you said it a million times? Does that make you an authority? Or do you actually have something insightful to contribute around a topic?
There's that famous phrase, if you keep repeating a lie enough, it becomes the truth, or something like that.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That won't happen, but you're making...
It's already happened.
Sorry. Yeah, we'll see this election, what happens, right?
Exactly right. No, because both, and I'll be equally fair. Propagandists on both sides of the aisle have been manipulating the media with a particular story. And it gets repeated enough times. I read a really depressing article in the Atlantic about the effort that the Chinese and Koreans and Russians are making on deliberately manipulating content for Western media consumption. And they're putting it out relentlessly. So there was another one about they did a backpedal on where does information come from, and it came ultimately and finally from about 10 places. And it just broadcasts out because of the multiplication effort of TikTok and X and all the other platforms. They pick it up and they repeat it, and and it starts to morph and becomes a little different, telephone game, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a handful of manipulators out there, is the best way I can say it, who are driving the conversation left or right.
To steer this to mental health for a second, there's a John Oliver special. And, some of his stuff is good, some's not. But this one was about internet scams and people who are getting you to cough up money, to pay them money willingly. And what they talked about is these people, scammers, are even getting people to give them money over dating apps. So they mentioned a woman who's on Bumble or whatever app, and they said, they don't tell you, hey, give us money. They go, oh, what do you do? And then you ask them and they say, well, I'm a cryptocurrency investor. And then they become your friend.
Right.
And what I was thinking was, and she even, I think some of these people may have said romantic. They had felt romantic feelings.
Sure.
And they had a scammer on there from Asia, I think. And he was saying, he's come forward and said, we are actually taught how to make friends and how to make you love us. And my point is the mental health aspect. I wonder if they're preying on our loneliness a bit,
No question.
unfortunately.
No question.
Yeah.
No question.
And if we could, I don't know how we address that entirely, but mental health, maybe a piece, maybe just preparedness, uh, you may be desperate for connection, but you have to be extra careful online. I don't know if you guys think about that much. So,
Well, let's just
I try not to make friends online, except with people like you,
just
like you
us.
and Pete. No, because I'm not. I'm literally. I'm not on any of those platforms. Thank God. My wife would kill me if she thought I was on a dating app. But no, I'm not on X. I don't. I'm not on
Hey,
TikTok.
your
I
girlfriend's
don't.
gonna get pissed. I
My
understand.
girlfriend's going to get pissed. Exactly. I don't get involved in those, so I'm not really sure what that means. I got enough trouble maintaining the handful of in real life relationships that I have without trying to get involved in ones online. It's just too complicated. And your
Anthony,
point is,
to go where you're to take
tell
you.
me.
I
Yeah.
think you were going. Let's just go to Netflix, okay? Social Dilemma, and
Okay. Mhm.
okay. I think if everybody just watches that to set a basis, because we're in an election year, and we're talking about authority. Now you have authority on this side, and you have influence on the other side. What's the difference between the two?
Mhm.
Authority leaves once you leave the room, okay? Influence will stay in the room once you leave. Okay.
Ooh, I
So,
like that.
oh, that's
okay,
a great quote.
Mhm.
that's an old school leadership one. But right,
We've got a
right
few
now
good ones like that, John. But yeah, go on.
you
That's
have
a
all
good
this
one.
you have all this advertising that's going to be going on.
Mhm.
Biden pooped his pants. Trump, orange man bad. Whatever it is,
Yep.
you're gonna
Yep.
it's going to
Mhm.
flame out the outliers, but still you have the moderate in between, which I like to say that I'm in there, common sense that can be, on either side, depending on what message they latch onto, because our brains are wired to go to negative information first. That's
Yeah.
basically what the social dilemma. Unfortunately, people complain
Yeah.
about it, but we're wired that way. Anybody want to talk about why we're wired that way?
A survival mechanism, I would assume. It's
I think
that
so.
shoot first, ask questions later.
Yeah, I once heard that in anxiety and intelligence, anxiety is almost a manifestation of intelligence, that on some level, intelligence may be for the precise reason to protect you from threats. And intelligence is the ability to envision abstract or far off vague threats. That may be why we develop, once every 10 years, there's a big storm. I got to prepare for that. So they may go hand in hand, unfortunately, to some degree.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you know about negativity bias piece. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Well, you
Yeah.
brought up prepper. What's going on inside the mind of a prepper?
What? Do I know any preppers? I had a vague time back 40 years ago when I would probably have been called a prepper. My ex-wife and I had nitrogen-packed food. I don't know exactly where it came from, but we read a lot of books on the end of the world, and it was like that. I came to realize this is delusional and doesn't make any difference. If it's a nuclear holocaust, we're all dead anyway. What am I preparing for?
Yeah.
So they got a certain amount of fatalism, I guess, built into it. I think they think there's a coming, complete collapse of Western civilization. They might be right. I personally don't see it. I'm a science fiction buff. I was having this conversation with my daughter last night, who is 23 and fairly cynical at this point about the future of the world. We're trying to decide whether or not she even wants to have children. I mean, it's gotten very serious in her demographic, these conversations with young people about do they see a future, climate change, social unrest, et cetera, et cetera. And the end of America. She's like, what happens if this is literally the end of democracy? What am I going to do? Where am I going to live? Where am I going to go? So there's a lot of fatalism and cynicism around the political process, the social contracts that we used to have with each other seem to be failing us at this point. And I've read enough science fiction. This is what I told her. I said, read some more science fiction. Put yourself out 300 years, 500 years from now. Given that we don't blow ourselves up, that we actually can get through this. There may be havoc, there may be horror, there may be destruction, there may be a lot of things. But humans have a very strong ability to survive really hideous stuff and come out the other side. And I think we would come out the other side better for it in many regards. So a lot of things we're going to have to let go of. A lot of our thought process around, misogyny or paternalism, some of these values that seem to be pretty firmly entrenched right now are going to have to go away, in my opinion, because it's not serving us culturally. So I was trying to encourage her to have a longer view. It's hard at 23.
We talk about rumination, and Anthony, you run you're a social media guy, so whatever pops up in the news, something tickles your interest, and you put out your little blurbs in there. What rumination on this side, and then actual news on this side? What do you see keeps popping up that you put out there?
Well, thank you for I guess asking that. I had a couple thoughts on that, on the prepper question. And this is not to say in every case, but I did kind of get fascinated with the idea of conspiracy theory. And it seems to be equated with paranoia. Paranoia, to bring it back to the EEG, OCD people are much more likely to experience paranoia. And as we know, OCD, at least from Jay's material, probably many others, related to frontal slowing. So I've had to guess, if somebody is extremely prepping for the future to an extreme, they might be OCD, and OCD itself is associated with cognitive rigidity, and that's an inflexibility. And so that person, I would just maybe get them to ask themselves, is this the most likely future I see? How soon is it? How confident am I really? Is there any other turn of events that I could envision happening? You mentioned on putting up statuses and things that catch my interest. I wanted to drop a plug for neurofeedback and just say, I really think since I engaged in this process a couple years ago, I really think those sort of eureka moments have happened to me more frequently. And if I had to guess, I think it relates to divergent thinking and versus convergent. Divergent thinking is associated with creativity. And I really feel like I just get more of those spontaneous moments. I feel like it's true for some of my other friends who experience neurofeedback treatment similar to what Jay, the kind of principles Jay advocates, reducing frontal slowing. That person who preps, they may be catastrophizing. I wouldn't be surprised if that's related to anxiety. And, anxiety is related to rumination. I think Jay puts rumination towards the front of the brain, but I know that T6 is often associated with social anxiety and other forms. So I'm wondering if getting treated could help somebody with paranoia and conspiracy thinking, and then maybe help them have more creative thinking too.
John, your thoughts?
Short answer is I'm very ecumenical about what neurofeedback does. And ecumenical is probably the wrong word. I talk about neurofeedback as peak performance training for the brain. I don't talk about it in terms of OCD or anxiety disorders or depression or any of the traditional, kind of diagnostic criteria. Can it be applied to those things? Of course. It's raising the platform's capability to flexibly perceive reality as it is, organize it properly, and provide you the ability in the moment to make the best decision possible. It's never going to be 100%, but the best one you can make. To leave out the nonsense, to weed through the forest, pick out the tree. These are the trees I need. This is the trees I'm going to build my house with.
It reminds me of
a carpentry metaphor I've never used before.
But I liked it.
But that's to me what neurofeedback does exquisitely.
I think you're right. When you mentioned flexibility, it made me think of I think it might have been the last podcast that Pete did with Jay, where he said that children and I'm going to use a clinical term, but I mean it as sort of a spectrum. You can be a soft version of this. Children with ODD. And he says often there's an anterior cingulate dysfunction, bringing it back to the physiology. And he says the anterior cingulate is limbic and it's primitive. So when you oppose it directly, the parent, no, you're not going to do that. Jay said, his words were, it thinks it's dying. It thinks you're attacking it. And so, not to say that everyone has a clinical OCD disorder, but I think of these things in terms of maybe like a spectrum, and these are like behaviors or patterns of thought. And the person who digs in when you present them with evidence, and they say, well, I don't care, and they just get harder, that maybe is suboptimal performance of their brain, to use your term, John.
Yeah.
And that even if they're not a person with a clinical disorder, or they don't even think they are, we can all get, I said this, we can all get a little more flexible and a little more attentive. So I do like the way you're conceiving of it. I think that's good.
And I like that you made a connection to T6 in the same regard. That social mirroring, empathetic. I understand you have a different opinion than me. It doesn't make you a hideous person.
I saw that article you sent out today about that, by the way. It mentioned on the watching movies together.
Isn't that great?
Brainwave sync, and they mentioned T6 being involved in theory of mind.
Yeah, theory of mind, exactly. Mm-hmm. I thought that was fascinating, because here's low-hanging fruit. Talk about how to train couple happiness. Just watch freaking Netflix together. My God, it couldn't be any easier. And have idle chit-chat about nothing in particular in between the shows. That's going to help your brain. I'm all in.
On one of those, it was funny because Facebook had a video with Jack Black, and I watched those videos. They're funny, and they said to him, if you had one piece of relationship advice, I guess he's been married a lot. I don't know why they were asking him, but do you know what his advice was? He says, watch shows together. He says, a lot of people, and my parents are like this, they go watch their shows. He'll go watch his show in his room and she in hers. He's like, no, like, try to bring it together. Like, get your Cheetos and sit on, he makes it funny because he's Jack Black. But, I try to do stuff like that, and I do think it works. So I like that.
It absolutely does. I have to get past the moment where my wife and I completely disagree on what we might want to watch. So we have to go down the list until we find the one that both of us are willing to watch. No, I don't want to watch that show. It's a chick show.
Hold on. You guys brought this crap up. How do you get your wife to stay up more than 15 minutes?
Oh my God.
No, dude,
and then you got to watch it. You got to watch it again.
I'm the one who falls asleep, dude.
Oh no.
She's much better at staying awake than I am. That's funny.
Have you been watching a lot of Bridgerton? Because I had to rewatch that recently.
See, no, I'm going to say that's a hard no for me.
Okay, yeah.
But I mean, the way
I can't get her to watch. I can't get her to watch The Boys, though.
Oh yeah. Well, she'll watch this one then, maybe. So
yeah, exactly.
Go on, go.
But what's nice about YouTube is, okay, whatever you agree upon, watching anything more than 8 minutes, it's to get together, to be on the same without looking at your phone. If you can get to 8 minutes, I think that's where YouTube monetizes at 8 minutes. If you can get somebody to watch 8 minutes. So if you can do that with a partner or anybody to agree on it before you lose interest, I mean, that's the attention span, 8 minutes.
Yeah, I don't have any. I used to watch 3, 4. I love long movies, for instance. Somebody says, "Oh, the movie's 3 hours long." I'm like, great. Hopefully, it warrants that length. But I'm happy to watch a 3-hour film. That doesn't kill me.
All right,
you're right. Most people don't.
Then explain to me what FOMO is. Fear of missing out. What is that?
I don't have it to a big degree, so it's hard for me to comment. Anthony, you're more social media savvy.
Jay and Marie aren't here. It's just Pete, so you can say anything you want.
I actually heard recently, I don't know what they called it, the LOMO, love of missing out, and it was about Gen Zs who like to stay home and reject going out or whatever. So there's these trends probably, they do say that the younger generations, I read recently that Gen Z is the first majority introvert generation.
Yeah.
And so both trends are probably going on, but I wonder, and they think phones may be a part of it. I kind of wonder, not to catastrophize, I do wonder sometimes if trauma is a little bit. There was a big Atlantic piece in the past couple months I found. It said that a majority of US college students are avoidantly attached and that the trend is only growing. And so there may actually be things, and you've probably picked up, so kids are drinking less, teen pregnancy is down, drug use is down. However, so are things like relationship and family formation. And so there may be a double-edged sword going on there.
Yeah, there's an isolationism happening. Maybe it's just it's overwhelming. I can't imagine. I'm too old now. I don't go on Instagram. I have an account. I don't use it. I don't go on it. I don't pay any attention. I hired somebody to do that for me. It's like, yeah, because I don't have the interest. But the relentless barrage of information leading to that fear of missing out feeling, that is nonstop. I so pity these 17, 18-year-old kids who are, still forming their ability to really discern proper conduct, and trying to figure out, oh, I'm seeing this, and that's not me. There's a disconnect. So maybe if I just avoid that provocation by not connecting, maybe that will help me. So I assume that's this neo-isolationism that you're describing tonight. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just called you Tony. Is that wrong?
It's fine.
Would you prefer Anthony?
I normally go by Anthony, but that's fine. Yeah.
The Chicago guy has to chime in. Anthony.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I think that there is a little bit of a disputed research on the social media effect. Jonathan Haidt is the researcher that's written this book about anxiety and the phone. And some people have pointed out that actually there was a Vox article, he uses suicide rates. And apparently there was also a change around 2010 where it's much easier for an emergency room employee or hospital employee to report suicide. And that after that happened, suicide rates in this country went up 50% or something like that. It takes like one code versus two or something to mention codes. But also, they are being exposed to comparison. I do think it's a little bit daily, all the time. I do think it's a little bit how you use it, though, as I guess I was going to say. Like, for instance, I really like our neurofeedback community and everybody in there. And I've learned so much. Josh Moore is one of the people who has been like the most charitable to me. Jay is obviously a top person at answering questions and just giving knowledge to whoever asks for it. And there are some studies saying social media can help and internet use can help well-being among both younger people and seniors. So maybe if you are not as susceptible to, say, anxiety and depression or whatever, not that that's those individuals' fault, and we want to help people like that. But maybe social media can be bad for some and good for others.
I'm sure that's true. My first contact with sort of the impact of this is years ago. A guy named Mikey Siegel. I saw him on I think it was a TED Talk, and he was talking about the phone, and he said social media, the phone, just as an instrument. This is the same as the mandala. I was like, what? He said it's a tool for self-exploration. Huh. And I went, that's an interesting way to look at it, just to think of it as this utilitarian tool. And it led me down to, he founded the, for God's sakes, a whole organization around trying to tie the world together into having this technology be our working for us and not against us. Being a positive, entirely a positive element in our lives. Because he's 100% right. Everybody on this planet has a phone. You can go to the wilds of Nigeria in a backwater village someplace, and somebody's got an iPhone. It's weird to think that it is that pervasive. And if we can figure out a way that can be a positive connecting element in our universe and not just used for social manipulation and comparisons and all that other junk.
Comparison, that's what I'm going to say, John. Is that the biggest detriment to the kids? Comparing?
Well, I would think for kids, again,
everybody's poor. How do you know you're poor?
Well, there's that. And kids are in that awful spot. We've all been kids. We understand. That's what we do. We compare ourselves to others. Do I measure up? Am I social? You don't want to be the kid left out. You want to be in the middle. Everybody wants to be in the middle because that's the safe spot. And nobody wants to be on the fringes because then you're looked at as weird for whatever reason. So we're all looking in that comparative zone, especially through our whole puberty, into mid, teenage years, until we finally get old enough to say, I don't care what anybody thinks about me. So, but that's who they are as creatures. And here we've handed them this horrible device that reinforces all the negative aspects of comparison and none of the positives.
Can the greatest gift that we could give to a kid or a teacher or a parent is HRV and breathing?
Yeah.
I'm throwing it out.
Yeah, that's low-hanging fruit.
I think that's a good one. There was some recent studies on some of those emotional and social wellness tools, I think they call them, used in schools. And unfortunately, the results were a little bit mixed. There was a lot written about some recent studies showed that mindfulness training actually made some teenagers feel a little bit worse. And so I think even with these sorts of tools, There's individuals for whom, I was just given a book on neurofeedback, or sorry, meditation in the EEG. Somebody in the Brain Master group recommended it, and he said, and I was like, this is awesome.
Jeff Tarrant's book?
It is.
Yeah,
So I went in there, and there's certain
brilliant.
kinds of meditation that can increase posterior alpha, and some can increase frontal theta, et cetera. So I think the phenotype may be affecting who's responding to meditation well and who's not. And so maybe those things, maybe we don't know enough to get this stellar result that we would love to have. But that's not to say there's not a use. Yeah. Go on.
No, I'm glad you picked up that book, and this is a topic that should be broadcast more widely. Meditation isn't for everyone. We all think it's this panacea. Everybody should just meditate. Well, which kind? Absolutely on target.
Yeah, what is meditation? Seriously, just sitting there and not thinking? Is that meditation?
That's Zen.
I think there's different types.
Yeah, I think there's 5 essential types. There's open focus, closed focus, Zen. There's a number of different types. Jeff outlines brilliantly in his book. If he hasn't been on your show, you should invite him. He's been on your show.
John, this is your show, John. Invite him. Let's go.
Well, no, Neuronoodle. Hasn't Jeff Tarrant been on Neuronoodle?
Yes, he has. Jeff has.
I thought so. I thought there was an episode.
2 years ago. Yeah.
I got to dig up the episode then.
But it's a good one, because in one of his books, he said, your kids got ADD, do not have them do focused meditation. Their heads will explode. Makes sense.
Not everybody needs more theta, frontal theta, and visualization meditation. If you're visualizing something, or Andrew Huberman talks about this, if you're trying to sense something that you can't actually physically sense, he even mentions like a third eye or something, that's going to increase theta waves. And you may not be an individual, you may have too much.
You have too much to begin with. Yep.
And that's just one example. I had a woman who, she had chronic pain. This was years ago, and I had read that meditation can help, mindfulness meditation can help chronic pain. So I mentioned that to her, and this is, she's a very cool woman, a very sober woman. But she said to me, I won't do meditation again. And I said, why is that? She said, I did it one time, and she said, I kid you not, I had a full out-of-body experience where I could see my own body. And it was so troublesome. It was so, worrisome to her. She's like, I can't risk doing it again. That's a more extreme case.
Wow.
But there are papers, I have them saved, on people who don't respond well. I met Nicky Whitridge at AAPB last year, pretty cool guy. And I asked him, why do you think some of these people are not responding well? I had a friend even tell me that breathing can stress them out sometimes. He said, my guess is it's high beta people, that they are interested in performance. And when they don't perform, they think of it as, okay, I can't mess up. And it actually makes them more high strung. But to me, that may mean these people need either a different type of meditation or breathing, or they need a little bit better coaching. I would love to see more. I bought Jeff Tarrant's book so I could see, can I match some of these patterns of meditation to the phenotypes that Jay outlines, or other principles from neurofeedback? So if my friend, I know, he has lots of frontal slowing, maybe there's a meditation I can give him and a different one to another friend. I would love to see more stuff like that.
Exactly right. I'm a big fan of open focus meditation. Les Femi's work from back in the day. He sadly passed on a couple of years ago, but that's really an interesting approach. It's very different than any other kind of meditation technique that I've run across. And it's hard to do. By the way, your friend with pain, that'd be the one I'd recommend. Open focus. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
so
if
really
they're ever willing to take a second chance.
Well, because it's not going to promote an out of body. Well, who the hell knows? It's the human brain. I'm not sure.
Yeah. But even psychedelics, I just talked to Jay the other day. Psychedelics are not for everyone. I know that many people are trying them now. People are singing their praises. But Jay and others will be the first to tell you, if you have beta spindles, if you have epileptic discharges, which those are apparently very underdiagnosed. Doctors don't even, subclinical epileptic discharges. You don't have seizures, but you have the evidence of epileptic activity in your brain. People are not looking for these things. They don't know about these things if they've never had an EEG, even if they have. And so they may go in and try it. And what for one friend was a great experience, for another, maybe it's a bad trip or worse,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
No,
Um,
they're not for everyone. The advisory board of the American Psychology Association, APA, just did not pass along the recommendation for MDMA
wow.
on a
Oh, I did see that.
very, very, prejudicial way. And it was like
It
a group of
wasn't.
10 and 8 of them voted no. I mean, it was like 8 to
Oh,
2.
wow.
I was like,
Okay.
yeah, it wasn't even close. Now,
That
that's not to
explains why I
say,
saw headlines saying, "What does this mean for the future of psychedelic research and stuff like
yeah,
that?" Okay.
I think their objections to it were probably more methodological than
Mhm.
perhaps is real. They had some questions about some of the studies that were being, put forth as being the reason why we should do
Okay.
this. And then, well, there's some hinky stuff within the studies, not proper control groups, yada, yada, yada. So some of it is methodological. And some of it is, I think to your point, we don't know yet. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Not everybody should be taking a statin. Not everybody should be taking Ozempic. There's a million things to say along similar lines.
Yeah.
One size does not fit all.
Jay actually had me go look it up the other day. He usually will just give me the answer, but he's like, this is an empirical question. You can find this out on what they're doing, what psychedelics are doing to the EEG. So I went and looked it up, and a lot of them, and Jay has said this, they seem to reduce frontal theta and delta, which a lot of individuals have too much of. And so, I found the research affirming that. But one of them in particular, this is just from a, one day of Googling or whatever, LSD was showing, and actually it has a rebound of those waves. So, and I just saw an article this week that some psychedelics, I think they mentioned LSD can make people feel more depressed after. So your choice of psychedelic may be very important, and the average user doesn't unfortunately know these things. But I guess research could help. I hope that they're doing incorporating EEG into this research, though. There was a study this week. I think I posted it yesterday. A Nature paper came out, and it said that fMRI researchers have been underestimating the extent to which um, the brain becomes more aroused the longer the fMRI goes on. So their equations are not correctly accounting for the arousal level of the patient. And Jay has talked about, and there's a Duke meta study showing that fMRI is very inconclusive. Literally, they give 50% of the time you'll get a completely different result in many fMRI studies if you put the same subject back in the machine. So we have this great test here, and everybody in the Facebook groups is very frustrated because we know that EEG can be very useful, but the educate or academics seem to want to use fMRI. I think
It's
EEG is creeping in there though. So
it's way sexier.
yeah, it sounds cooler maybe or something like
Exactly.
that. It's more expensive
That's
and
right. Yes. Try getting your 8-year-old into that machine. Come on.
yeah.
Anthony,
Um,
Yeah,
Anthony, you
go
brought
on,
up
Ron.
Nicky Whitridge. We should reach out to him. He did a few posts out there. He was dabbling in the podcast realm. He was having some issues with sleep. He was trying to get to the bottom of it. I was just wondering if he ever did. Is he still awake? But if he's not, what's going on with sleep? Why are people having a problem with sleep? Anything popping up in the news?
there was a study, though, the best study that I've seen recently about sleep was they did a study. The 3 cohorts were people who got 4 hours of sleep a night, people who got 6 hours of sleep a night, and people who got 8 hours of sleep a night. John,
Okay.
Anthony's nodding. I think you know this one. The,
Yeah.
the biggest takeaway was the people with 4 hours of sleep, they did pre and post cognitive testing. The
Okay.
people with 4 hours of sleep clearly collapsed. They didn't have any function left after
Hmm.
2 weeks of 4 hours of sleep. It was something like that. The
Hmm.
people with 8 hours of sleep, pretty much same data. They functioned well at the pre, they functioned well in the post. The people with 6 hours of sleep collapsed equally to the people with 4 hours of sleep. The
Wow.
difference is they didn't know it. They weren't
Ooh.
aware. They weren't aware that their cognitive skills had been impaired.
So they had kind of like a low grade cognitive impairment or something below the threshold of them noticing it. and they were overconfident, maybe
overconfident in their skills, and you could show them the test results and go, here's your working memory. It's, it's reduced by 30%. Well, that's not how I feel. There's an emotional disconnect because culturally we've become accustomed to sleeping 6 hours a night. And people think it's okay. Or I catch up on the weekend a little bit, but I'm fine. I have a double espresso shot in the morning and I'm good to go. And it's like you can't convince them scientifically, because science is hard to understand, that the results are the results. I don't know what to tell you. You failed your Stroop test miserably. They go, I don't know. I seem to work okay. My boss thinks I'm doing fine. Whatever.
Yeah, right. I think I saw a study, and maybe it was the same one, and they said reaction time in particular goes down with even just a little bit of sleep debt.
Yeah.
And I think car companies were showing off demos of a product that can tell if you're sleep deprived before you start driving or something.
Love that.
There was one this week about 5 different, I think they called them biotypes of sleep. And what it said was they didn't actually have, they said a connection to a host of different diseases. But what the real finding was, they didn't detail the diseases. What they said was people frequently moved between these biotypes. So maybe one was waking up in the middle of the night versus not, or waking up early versus not. And they said that when you move between those types, it reflects mental and physical health changes that are going on. And so I bring this up to say, because I don't hear it enough in my view, when friends are undergoing neurofeedback or any other treatment, I tell them to start sleep tracking. And I tell them to even get a cheap app, because we can tell, it feels like you can tell very quickly how the treatment is progressing, if it was the right treatment for them. I'll give you an example. A friend who was undergoing treatment that Jay consulted on began suppressing FZ, frontal slow waves. And it felt good. It was helping them with the things we wanted to, but their sleep score went down. And so my intuition was, we need to do more SMR. We need to address your sleep more. But sure enough, I put on the groups in one of the neurofeedback groups, guys, can you help me with this? Have you seen sleep go down? And I think it was Jay Gaddis, who's also a very helpful guy. If you've never had him on, he works at the Amen Clinic. He goes, when you're doing frontal suppression, you want to do 2 to 3 times the amount of SMR. And sure enough, we did SMR to this individual. The sleep stabilized, but every so often it'll get out of whack. So we know we need that more SMR. My point of saying that is, track your sleep, people, and there's cheap ways to do it. You do not need, I've had a couple of people say, oh yeah, I'm going to go buy an Aura ring, and then they never do. You don't, yes, probably better. You don't need a $350 device to track sleep. You can do it with a cheap, the one I like is called Sleep Cycle app. It's the most popular one on iTunes. And is it as effective as an Actigraph, which Jay talks about? Probably no, I'm sure it's not. But a lot of these things are like 80% accurate. And I think if you see changes, so even if it's not perfect, if you see your sleep has cratered, speaking to John's point last thing, when the person is only the sleep's only gotten a little bit worse, they're not so prone, I think, to notice it. But I think it's an early warning sign that these sleep trackers can provide us. So that's my piece on advice on sleep tracking.
Our clinic experience, what we do is we provide a sleep tracker. It's called the Kairos.
That's awesome.
It's part of our plan. You have to wear it. And I got a dashboard. I can see their data. I know exactly how they slept. I know what quotient of deep sleep they got. I can see their HRV. Amazing. I can see their heart rate, their respiration rate, all the rest of it. It's algorithms. It's not a chest strap. I understand none of it's going to be 100%. Yeah. But your point is right on, Anthony. If there's some less expensive way, and at least you get an indication, even if it's not 100% accurate, it's better than guessing. How'd you sleep? Okay. Which is the normal response from most clients. How's your sleep? That's fine. Well, I'm going to know how fine it is in about 2 weeks.
I'll let Joshua Moore.
Yeah, Joshua. Hello.
Joshua Moore. Welcome to the show. Welcome, Joshua.
I've not met you. It's a delight to meet you, sir.
I've heard of you, John. It's very nice to finally meet you. I hail from the Pacific Northwest on the southern side of Washington State, right on the border of Portland, Oregon. We run a small clinic with about 6 employees, and we work with and train and partner with about 6 other clinics in our area. And we have a pretty good, thriving neurofeedback practice out here. We're pretty busy.
I really like your neurofeedback for all thing. I think that's awesome. I think that's really awesome.
I really appreciate that. I'm going to be working on it and adding to it and cleaning it up. It was originally just a project for my clients. And then I think it was Joy Lunt that was like, you should let everybody else have it. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
you know.
In my spare time.
Yeah. Well, it didn't need much change to put it out there. I think I converted it in less than a month.
Good for you.
So it was pretty nice for the clients.
And this is Josh's book, I think, called Neurofeedback for All. I still need to get a copy. Was that
Right.
correct?
Yeah. I should send you a copy. Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, wow. That'd be great.
So
We were just talking about sleep tracking. Don't know if you have any experiences or things you want to add there,
Well,
Josh.
I know that what we do for a living can sometimes help sleep. There's lots of good research on that, and maybe there's certain types of sleep disorders that we don't know if we can touch or not, and there's some that we probably can't. I know that when I hear someone say I'm sleeping great and I'm really drowsy during the day, or something like that, I mean, these continuous oxygen monitors, are going to give you some alarming data pretty quickly. And I don't tell them how to interpret those, but I'm like, well, let's just get some feedback about your sleep. And a lot of, smarter watches can do a lot of tracking. Most of them don't track continuous oxygen. They give you averages, I think. But if you can get continuous readings, you can sometimes find, well, I had an average of 96, but I did spend, 15 minutes, in mid 80s. It's like, ooh, okay.
Yeah.
And if you just have them pay attention to that, they'll notice that was a bad day the next day.
Right.
So it's pretty obvious that it has an impact.
And it prompts you perhaps to make a referral to a doctor. Maybe you have sleep apnea.
Absolutely.
It's like, which is that's dangerous. You could die. We've had a couple of those.
So Joshua, what we're trying to do here is this is like happy hour for neurofeedback, or the boys getting together. Jay and Dr. Marie, they're busy. So we can get away with what we want to get away with here. But
our time.
You guys are all people that I've talked with in the past, very interesting individuals. And Joshua, what I think you bring to the table is, number one, you're a veteran. Thank you for your service. Number two, PTSD we haven't talked about yet. Talk to us about your work with PTSD and vets.
Well, we've used a lot of different techniques over the years. Currently, we've gone quite smitten with Ruth Lanius's protocol, Alpha Down protocol. It seems to be a little simpler. It seems to be easier to scale. It seems to have a little bit less abreactions. And, we still find clients need stabilizing and some sort of stabilizing protocol periodically, especially if you can see those kind of tendencies in their symptoms or QEEG. But other than that, it's super clean and straightforward. I remember I'm just actually in the process of gathering up all Ruth's research and Dr. Lanius's research and reading through it piece by piece by piece. And I'm not complete with that project. I think I've just gathered it all.
Neither are we.
Very impressive. What's that?
I said, Joshua, don't worry about it. Neither are we. We're just
okay. Well, I will get around to it.
We're at a bar. We're talking about what we heard, what we thought we knew, and then Jay and Dr. Marie will tell us how we screwed up. We'll edit that out in post. Continue, Joshua.
Well, I find it to just be a little bit of a game changer in an area of neurofeedback that I was already very, very satisfied with. I wasn't complaining at all with the protocols that we had for PTSD, and I wasn't expecting to enhance that part of my practice, in the last, 2 years, but we did. And, I'm very, very grateful. I can't wait to meet Dr. Lanius myself and ask her a few specific questions and express my gratitude towards her. But it's also very easy to scale with technicians and new employees, which is, to have something like PTSD that seems to stump pretty much everybody else in the mental health field, to have such a great tool that works at such a high success rate quickly with a technician who's just in the beginning of their training. That's too nice. That's too cool.
It's awesome.
Joshua,
if only the VA could figure that out.
Well, Ruth Lanius has done some studies using veterans, and I think it would be an easy sell after I get the data together, after I've reviewed it carefully. I suspect, being a veteran myself, those connections would be not too hard. There's a tiny bit of communication going back and forth between me and Dr. Matt Fleischman, and I haven't proposed this yet, but I'm wondering if, his experiences in getting contracts and things like that and working with Medicare and Medicaid
Yeah.
You know, I'd love to get his wisdom or partner with him down the road because, you know, my background could complement his.
Oh, absolutely. No, there's a natural synergy there. Yeah,
Mhm.
Now,
And we're
Josh,
close to each other. We're within driving distance of each other.
that's right.
So
and you guys are
I
both
like
on
him a
the
lot.
West Coast, I think. Sorry.
Yeah. No, he's down. I think he's in Oregon, but he's
Okay.
within drive. He's a few hours. We met physically because we're close enough to drive and meet. So
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Mhm. Yeah,
Josh,
great
I was
guy.
gonna ask.
Fantastic website. If you haven't seen,
That
just go look at his website and go to that tracking site. I
Yeah.
mean, all I know is that with my next neurofeedback project, I want something like that. You know,
Yeah.
and it won't be nearly as complex. It says it'll be simple for one disorder, one protocol, you know, well vetted, and maybe we'll put a nonprofit around it, and it'll be tracking on PTSD. So something like Ruth Annis's research recreated in real time through a nonprofit. You know, that doesn't seem very hard. I think I could do the programming myself, but and that's a beautiful way to present the clinic.
well,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Ruth is in Canada.
Okay.
They're more willing to spend the money up there
Mhm.
on it. And what I don't, and in the United States for the vets for
Yeah.
PTSD, it's been acceptable. But
Mhm.
what I don't understand is if NASA says it's okay,
Mhm.
right? And then the vets say it's okay. Why is it so many hurdles to get through to make it acceptable with insurance companies here in the States?
It's an issue with our billing codes. And that's a long story, and I'm probably not the perfect person to tell that story, even
You're
though
on
I
the right
think I
show
know
then.
it. Right, yeah. I do know that they're currently working on that. And again, I'm telling this secondhand. I'm not directly involved in it, but I try to keep close tabs on it, people who have been involved in it or are involved in it. And we have to go to a federal board, which we have to get an invitation to, which we currently have an invitation through, I believe, the occupational therapists. And under that federal board, there is a long, drawn out process of maybe 200 pages that have to be filled out with multiple audits and multiple reviews. And, you know, we did that a long time ago, but we didn't finish it. And so our codes are basically, and I hope I'm not, you know, wrong on this, but it sounds like they've been described as basically broken. And insurance companies don't want to use them because there's gaps and missing pieces to them that maybe on the administrative side, you know, that make them far less appealing for use. And it's just a big giant bureaucratic thing that we have to get together, and we have to form the right committees. And again, they might be doing that correctly right now. I hope. You know, I don't want to say much more than that, but there are people who probably could come and talk on that topic far more
Joy
clearly.
Lunt. Joy Lunt would be who you want to talk to.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I really want to be hopeful about that. But it could go sideways.
I take kind of a contrarian position, and let's see how this lands with everybody. I personally don't think neurofeedback, pursuing insurance reimbursement for neurofeedback is a good idea.
Interesting.
I think we're aligning ourselves with what, in my view, is clearly a failing healthcare delivery system. People, psychotherapists, psychiatrists, you get on the list. Very few of them are still taking insurance. Why is that? Because they're just money grabbers? No, the reimbursement rates for their services are inadequate. The constraints around medical necessity and all the other conversations that get involved are too onerous. Do I trust Aetna or United Healthcare to be making sophisticated medical decisions around proper treatment planning for a particular client for whatever? I don't care what area you want to think about. No. So I think the system itself is aligned against us. You're going to end up with neurofeedback being reimbursed at $50 an hour using SMR and CZ down. Those are the only two protocols you'll be allowed to use. Anything else is experimental and won't be reimbursed.
Yeah. Do you think that it will at least give us some credibility? Let's say, because I, to some degree, to a large degree, I agree with you. So much so that I've actually started other companies so that I have, we'll say, escape plans.
Yep,
Just
I got
case.
you. I got you.
Because I'm that paranoid too. But do you think it'll give credibility even if it isn't usable?
To whom? I think the problem with neurofeedback, truthfully, and from my perspective, this field has been seeking credibility since I've been in it, and from what I observed for 50 years. We've been doing this for 50 years.
Yes.
We know what we're doing. I don't need the Academy of whatever to tell me I know what I'm doing.
Right.
I don't care. I don't need somebody to tell me you don't have enough random control trials. I don't care. I know this works.
Yes.
And I need the flexibility to be able to implement it the way I see fit.
Yes.
And I can't have an authority telling me I can't do that. So if you told a psychotherapist you are limited to Jungian treatment, they'd all laugh.
Right.
I get to use the tool that I think is appropriate for the client and the circumstances that are presented to me.
Agreed.
And so we're all in agreement here. We seem to be stuck in I need the academic community to validate me. There are how many studies on neurofeedback at the gym? Anthony, you probably know better. 6,000? I mean, it's in the thousands.
Not enough.
But it's never going to be enough.
The way, if you want to look, what I've seen, that's the reason why I'm only doing a podcast now. I started doing this, okay? I bought the $30,000 Stens 19-channel amplifier. The only way you can do this is you got to hire a couple PsyDs and do talk therapy and neurofeedback on the side. It's the only way you can make money with it, because look, maybe you can get 1 out of 10 that is cash, but the amount of time that you put into it, I just have, at least in the Midwest, where it's not as progressive as on the coast, you got to get a couple PsyDs, do talk therapy, and instead of doing Uno or card tricks, you're doing neurofeedback on the side and doing it. That's the only way you can make money doing it. Talk me out of it.
Well, I have a cash business.
Yeah.
It's entirely cash and always has been. 17 years, I've been doing neurofeedback for cash. And, as things have expanded in my worldview about how to deliver these services, things have changed. I've added in functional medicine. I'd love to talk about that. I could do 2 hours. We could have another whole episode on the integration between functional medicine and neurofeedback. As I think they are so aligned, and we're missing the boat on functional medicine is missing the boat on not aligning with us more properly, and we're missing the boat on not aligning with them. So I think that's our aligning with psychiatrists and psychologists is not the right way to go. What we do here is not cognitive. It doesn't really have much to do with cognition. This is brain circuit behaviors, wiring. This is, think of it in either from the ILF perspective or in traditional neurofeedback, from the operant conditioning perspective. It's not about how we're thinking about things. It's how the brain is organizing itself at a much deeper level. So that I think is the future. So I think it's not a limitation of, are there people willing to pay cash for the service? Of course there are. I mean, it depends on the town you're in. Am I going to buy a Lamborghini out of this? Absolutely not. That's not my goal. My goal is not to have a multi-million-dollar mansion and a private plane. That's not why I do this. I do it for different reasons. If I can feed my family and have my staff feed their families, I'm good. So I think we have to think about that. And if I wanted to make a lot of money in medicine, I'd become a plastic surgeon. I wouldn't become an internist. And there's a lot of corollaries that you can draw to how you do whatever you were trained to do in this world. So the specialization. Anthony.
I wanted to mention on the topic of insurance, I'm coming from the senior care industry. My family runs an agency, and I know a lot of people who run agencies. And I'll tell you, there's a lot that do not accept Medicare, and they do not accept VA compensation because of some of the things John is talking about, where you are only compensated for certain services. It tends to be like a below market rate. And further, there's a lot of regulation to do things like Medicare. You have to have monthly, basically trainings that are basically a waste of time. And so I am receptive to the idea that these things are slow, they're inefficient, frustrating. I do think that because of cost, there are probably people who we could reach if we did have some of that traditional medicine insurance complex support that we can't right now, unfortunately. And the answer to both, and I'm very new at this, so I don't know the promise of each individual technology. The answer to healthcare costs and maybe what we're doing getting more prevalent probably someday is technology to where we can make healthcare cheaper and also maybe make neurofeedback cheaper, quicker, more efficient. So I would love to see technology compensate for some of this too. I don't have the answers, obviously, to the insurance and the academic debate. One note on the academic debate, I have a friend who's an MD. He's done neurofeedback and he liked it. He really feels like he's benefited, but he says, I think the best entryway for this branch of science is really to start with, unfortunately, is to start with EEG. And he could be wrong, by the way, but start with EEG for use in medication targeting. And that would borrow, in his words, it borrows the legitimacy of medications, which the entire traditional medical model, he acknowledges, it's all built up to see what medications can do. That's how most conditions are treated. And unfortunately, but there's probably multiple lines of attack. So thank you to Josh and whoever else is working on the line of attack with the establishment. And thank you to John for pioneering, brain optimization and these other approaches.
The third thing, the third thing that Joshua brings to the table is co-opetition.
Yeah, thank you,
Joshua. How is that working out?
What is that?
It's pretty good. I have decided I would basically train all my competition and help them, and it didn't harm me. There's lots of
go into details. You had a neurofeedback practitioner right down the hall from you, I believe.
Well, I had like a former employee start a company and then train 6 or so employees, and then he couldn't find a place to lease, and he's like, "Can I lease from your building from you?" And it was like, do I want to put 2 big neurofeedback clinics in the same spot? I think we had 15 practitioners in the same building from multiple companies, and I was like, I don't know, let's just go for it, let's do it. And everybody was busy. Currently we have 100 people come through the door every week, and we have a waiting list. Do we need insurance? I mean, do we need it? John, no, we don't need it, but there's, I would say, 4 or 5 clinics that have several employees, and it's hard to keep track of how many people have come from our clinic and how many clinics have been started from our clinic. And I still, to this day, volunteer a lot of time to mentor people. I met today with people who didn't pay me to go over QEGs for free just to get them off. I'd like to get paid for it someday, but I'm very happy to do whatever is useful. And those aren't like clinics back east. Those are clinics, down the street. Wow. Those are my competition.
I want to give Josh props for that, because I mentioned, even before you got here, by the way, I mentioned you've been one of the most charitable people to me on Facebook. You're very forthcoming, helpful with knowledge. So I really appreciate it. You and Jay Gunkelman, obviously, and also Jay Gaddis, probably my top 3 that I'm able to communicate with. So and it's also nice to meet you face to face finally, by the way.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate
physically seeing you, not in a picture. That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the idea of the fact that you're thinking in that way, that there's enough work for us to do in this field that I don't view my competitors as competitors. They're not, their colleagues. Siegfried Oppenheimer said, when I first started this, there's no shortage of people with mental health challenges.
No.
Don't worry about that. There are more customers than you could see in your entire lifetime.
I would encourage this exercise. Ask yourself, do I have more or less scope than a massage therapist? And I think the natural conclusion is I have a broader scope of utility than a massage therapist. Then go online and figure out how many licensed massage therapists work in your city. And in my city, it's 200.
Wow.
Okay. We haven't reached market saturation yet.
No, not even close.
We have far more neurofeedback practitioners than is common in our area, far more.
You really do up that way. That's true.
Yeah.
Something about the Northwest air, I think. Maybe it's the water. I don't know.
There wasn't, maybe 10, 12, 13 years ago, whenever I started, there wasn't very many of us out here. I mean, there was Noelle down in Portland, but she's really shy. I don't see her connecting very much. I have a hard time even tracking her down, even though she's close to me. And then we had
Stuart, I'm blanking on his last name. He's up your way. Anyway,
Jim Brown, I think, was out here. He retired right as I started, I think. But there wasn't like 7 names there, and now there's like 60.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I think the co-opetition is cool. I just want to say, in business school, they teach that You need not always fear competition. Sometimes competition, they use the term proves the market. It proves that there's demand. It can draw more attention. I'm thinking of, I don't know, when another burrito place opens on the same street as another one, then maybe everybody wants Mexican more. Things like that have been known to happen. It's not without
Hold
merit.
on,
So, yeah.
but with the burrito station, there is the health department to shut them down. We have bad actors. There's nobody to shut down a bad actor in neurofeedback. That's kind of where I'm going with differentiation and standardization of care.
Okay.
That's a whole nother level of things, because when you go to a neurologist, I'm like, why don't you look at EEGs more? Because, well, I can look at 3 different people giving me an EEG reading. I get 3 different ones, and there's nothing, nothing standard about it. And I think that's where licensing comes into care, where whether it's Jay Gunkelman or whoever it is that gives the stamp of approval that these people know what they're doing, there's nothing that's out there now. So again, there's outliers, but the bad actors that are the 5% on the outlier, 30%, put the number in there, 30% are saying, oh man, they don't know what they're doing, and it screws it up for everybody else. That's where I think we need a little.
Well, BCIA should fulfill that function.
They don't.
And it doesn't, for a variety of different reasons. I'll use a personal one. I can't be a member of BCIA. I don't have a master's degree in a health field. I guarantee you I know what I'm doing. But I did, for whatever reason, that's a closed door to me. And it annoys me. I've been at it for a long time to try to figure out, is there a way around this?
But why do you need them? What do they do?
Well,
they take money.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we're looking for an authority that's,
voice.
Yeah, exactly. That's not involved in a piece of machinery or a product. To say these people have been through training, they've done their, their ethics, all of the other things that make somebody a good practitioner in whatever field. Yeah, there should be rigor to this. It's not just hey, I'm a doctor, I bought some equipment, I'm doing neurofeedback because I'm an MD and I can. Oh, that's not enough. Not enough to make me happy, but the consumer doesn't know the difference. So yeah, I would love to see something like that. But my personal grind is I won't be that guy. I'm okay with it. I'm living with it.
Well, we'll end it with this. Who can Jay Gunkelman's stamp of approval? So you need teeth. You need ramifications. If you provide bad care and whatever it is, like, what is it?
Okay, I'll speak for Jay. He's not taking that gig. He is not that. He is never going to take that job.
One of his disciples could.
Okay, but I mean, Jay, has a particularized skill set. Does he know enough about? God, I'll go crazy here. What can I say? What can I drag out of my? Does he know enough about inflow frequency training to be an authority on whether or not somebody knows how to do it or not? I don't know. I haven't asked Jay. Maybe he knows more about it than I think.
But he would be on the advisory board.
Yeah, no, I understand. But I mean, his stamp of approval has its own limitations. He's just one guy. I would think a board of people who have different kinds of perspectives on what is neurotherapy and what does it mean in the large scope. I have 100 axes to grind, and we can do 10 shows on this. Is Lens Neurofeedback? There's a question I'd love to talk about. I personally don't think it is, but that's me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody convinced me it is neurofeedback.
I would love to hear that discussion.
Wouldn't it be a great one? Because they're using it all the time. Lens Neurofeedback.
Well, it would be fair to have a Lens, somebody reasonably high up make the case. And I wouldn't want a gotcha moment. I want an honest discussion.
Yeah, ISNR keeps telling me they're going to have this discussion, and so far it hasn't showed up. But that's just one.
Invite them on.
I would love to change the dialogue, by the way, around the word treatment. I don't think neurofeedback is a treatment. I think it is a training.
Sure.
Treatment is something you do to somebody.
I didn't know.
I'm not doing anything to my clients. I am helping my clients reveal their inner brain workings so that they can change them themselves. That's training.
I have shifted the language to training as well.
Because I think that the issue with it, Josh, is the culture is understanding of the word treatment. That they get. And I have the clients who come to me, how many treatments is it gonna take? How many treatment sessions do I have to have every week? And I have to very forcefully repeat over and over and over again, this is not a treatment. I'm not doing anything to your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike Lens.
How long does it take you to get into shape? How long does it take you to get out of shape?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's my paradigm. That's my comparative paradigm. We're the physical fitness trainers at the gym. That's who we are. We're telling you how much weight to lift and how often to lift it.
Mm-hmm.
To use that broad metaphor.
Good one.
So boys,
not to denigrate what we do. It's highly skilled.
What the hell do we call this show?
Training with the boys.
The boys.
What are the girls going to say?
Yeah,
No,
we don't want to exclude them. We need some feminine energy in here.
Yeah.
There's too many beards. Start with that.
But, call it the Avengers. There's male and female on there.
There you go.
The mental health Avengers.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
All right. Well, whatever. It's a working title.
That's it.
Yeah.
John, Anthony, Joshua, the mental health Avengers. Part of the premise of this is we're showing up at a bar, a restaurant, and people show up at different times.
Okay.
That's true. I was already drunk.
You got done early, right? This is why you started early.
Yeah,
Joshua, his client showed. Good, you made money. Good for you, man. Me and Anthony, we're just scraping by here.
I was drunk before I got here. No.
Wow. Yeah.
John, Anthony, and Joshua, how can I get wrong with your first names?
There you go.
The mental health Avengers. Hey, invite some other people to come on. Let's have this is a great conversation.
Oh,
I could name a few people that I think would be great. I know that I've relied on for advice in many dimensions. Giancarlo, a great support to me, and I would put him above me in terms of kind people who you're just gonna love. I appreciate those warm thoughts towards me, but you're gonna love Giancarlo.
Wow, cool.
Oh, he'll be at the Susun Summit. He's been on the show before. He's great. He'd be a great addition. Giancarlo, I know you're listening out there or watching. You're invited. Let's go. Boys, girls, have a great weekend.
Yeah, this was fun. Anthony, Joshua, pleasure to meet you. Pete, great to see you as always. We didn't get to the Billy Jack hat, but all right.
Sweet lid, isn't it? Boys, take care.